Hi guys, it's Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, also known as Marc Zicree of Space Command, and it's a lazy Sundays, hence the lack of shaving. But I wanted to commemorate the passing of someone. The last video I did was about the passing of the great Stan Lee, but there was one other person who died around the same time who was an actor who gave one of the greatest performances in all of cinema and played one of the most iconic roles. And the interesting thing is, many of you have probably never even heard his name. His name was Douglas Rain, and he was a Canadian actor. He lived into his 90s, interestingly enough, but you probably don't know who he played. Now, I will give you a hint because I will show you my, here it is, my HAL 9000 laptop, and there we go. It lights up and everything, and of course, that's HAL 9000 from Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, one of the great, great films of all time. And HAL 9000 is one of the great science fiction computers, artificial intelligences of all time. Now, just put it in context, in science fiction, film and TV, most computers and most robots did not talk. And so, for instance, you have Maria, the robot in Metropolis, who doesn't speak because it's a silent movie. And in the 1939 New York World's Fair, they actually had a talking robot that the audience could interact with. And the first great talking robot in film is undoubtedly Robbie the Robot in Forbidden Planet. But in that film, the computer didn't talk. It was 20 miles in one way and 20 miles in another way, didn't talk. And but Robbie did, and it was voiced by Marvin Miller, who was also in a TV show called The Millionaire, and he was terrific as Robbie. And the same guy who designed that robot designed the robot in Lost in Space, which is another great talking robot, with the actor who also was the announcer on Space Patrol doing that voice. And then we, of course, have the computer on Star Trek, 1966, and that was played by Majel Barrett, who also played Nurse Chapel, and also was #1 in the first Star Trek pilot, and later married Gene Roddenberry. So that was 66, and 68 is when 2001 came out. Now, amazingly, HAL, everyone says HAL was named after IBM, and Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke said no. They were very, very firm on that, because you move one letter over and it's IBM, International Business Machines, which was the top computer company at the time. Probably they actually did name it after IBM, but didn't want to risk a lawsuit, and so probably just made up this other thing about being, heuristically, well, whatever the acronym stood for. So, but HAL is this great. He's really the most emotional character in 2001. He speaks on an emotional level where the astronauts don't. They speak very coldly and very rationally and don't seem to have much in the way of emotions, whereas HAL has a lot of emotions, and particularly when he's lobotomized, so to speak, it's just a heartbreaking scene and very, very moving. And he's just an amazing character, one of the great characters in all of cinema. Interestingly enough, in the script, by Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke, the character was named Athena, and they originally intended it to be a female voice, and then by the time they shot the movie, they used Martin Balsam's voice. Now, Martin Balsam was a wonderful character actor who appeared in a lot of movies and TV shows. Probably you would know him if you'd seen Psycho. He's the detective who gets killed and falls down the staircase in that film, and which is a wonderful actor. But when they recorded it, Kubrick felt it sounded too masculine, and he decided that he wanted something that sounded very asexual and kind of, between male and female. Now, the way he got Douglas Rain was one of the inspirations for 2001 was a film called Universe that was a tour of the universe. It was done, it was a Canadian film. I believe it was shown at the New York World's Fair, and Douglas Rain was the narrator, who was a very popular actor in Canada, had done Lost Stage and Canadian television, and so Kubrick hired him. And the fascinating thing about that was he came in for one 8-hour recording session, ADR session, and read all the lines with Kubrick directing him as to what he wanted. He actually did a number of lines more that were cut out of the film because they just, particularly in the scene where Hal is lobotomized, it went on a lot longer and they trimmed it. But he was the perfect choice, And later he reprised the role of Hal in 2010, Peter Hyams' film. And but of course, fascinating thing is that his greatest role, his most famous role, was from an 8-hour session where he interacted with none of the other actors. He wasn't on set with Gary Lockwood or Keir Delay. Interestingly enough, Hal's lines to them were read by a stagehand who had a Cockney accent. So they in their heads they were hearing Hal with a Cockney accent. But and so I think Douglas Rain was not at all pleased that he was known for an 8-hour recording session and not for any of the other roles he played. You know, and as I say, he lived into his 90s, and so because I never met him, never saw him at conventions, never read an interview with him talking about Hal, so perhaps he was less than enthused to be identified with that role. But for all of us who love 2001, and a new edition is coming out on 4K, and though I really disliked the sound mix that Christopher Nolan did on it. When I went to 2001, when it debuted in the 60s, you didn't have to plug your ears because the music was so loud at various points, whereas with the Christopher Nolan version, you did. I saw that version twice, and although the visuals look very, very good, the sound just is deafening. And so on your home TVs, you can probably turn that down. Hopefully you can turn it down. And I think it also has the audio track from the original version, which I'm sure I'll prefer. But 2001 really holds up. I love the film. It's the future we thought we were going to get, and Hal was the computer perhaps we were afraid we would get. But there's something really likable and endearing about that character, despite what he does, and so you have strange mixed feelings about him. But anyway, I just wanted to commemorate the passing of Douglas Rain and let you all know about him a little bit and about the development of that character. The red eye with the little yellow pupil is just so amazing and iconic and cool. And they actually had a shot when he's disconnected where that goes dead, and they took that out because he really doesn't go dead. They just leave the autonomic functions going so the ship can continue, but they just delete his higher brain functions. But amazing film. If you haven't seen 2001, I've just spoiled some of it for you, but hopefully not. But definitely go see it, and if you haven't seen it in a long time, watch it again. I love the film. I love the visual design. It's affected many, many, many TV shows and movies, and Hal as a character has certainly influenced many writers in many, many ways. The only other thing I'll say about that is, film and TV are collaborative media, and that's where you evolve, you work on it, you come up with better ideas, you reject things, throw them out, come up with something better, and that's what you emerge with. And so I'm really glad that Kubrick stayed the course. And so now, and in closing, if you are new to Mr. Sci-Fi, remember to subscribe. I post about science fiction all the time. We're trying to get many more subscribers, so spread the word so that I can use the YouTube space more to shoot Space Command. We're going to be posting about Space Command and updating you guys, which will be a lot of fun. And we'll be announcing the spacesuit contest very soon. And additionally, continuing our history of science fiction in films and in TV and radio. So that's it for now. Marc Zicree, Mr. Sci-Fi, Marc Zicree at Space Command, and we have a Patreon page under Marc Zicree, and you can help Mr. Sci-Fi keep going by throwing a couple dollars our way. And that's about it for now. So talk soon, and thanks very much, guys. Bye-bye.